Our project that we're working on is called the Travel Rewards Research Pilot, and we're basically using behavioral science and design to really look at what shifts travel behavior. And the big thing that we're looking at is the data. So that's why we are working with some behavioral scientists. Our pilot framework really is what is the right incentive price point and delivery model that changes travel behavior. In our region, we have employers that are regulated to reduce trips. We have TMAs that are trying to help employers do that. We have cities that have different TDM requirements, but we've never really dug down data-wise to see what's the right incentive price and what's the right delivery method that gives you the highest return on investment. So that's what we're doing with our grant. And so our partners are Duke, their Center for Advanced Hindsight. They're a group of behavioral scientists, and they're basically working with us to help us set up what we're calling the interventions and evaluating the study and the data. We have our technology partners, which are Miles, Transit App, Uber, Ride Amigos, and Metropia. And they are the ones that are basically helping us track and kind of cull all the commute data. And then we have our actual participants, so the actual commuters. And those we are getting through partnerships with employers, nonprofits, and TMAs.
Jacquilyne, can you tell us what each of the mobility partners do? I'm not familiar with every one of them. Uber, of course, we know.
Okay, but yeah, so Miles is it's a platform that encourages mode shift. And so anyone can sign up. They do work with employers, but then they also do work with just the public. So basically you sign up, they track your trips, and for every non-drive alone trip that you take, you then get points that can be used to redeem for gift cards or for highly discounted coupons for different local businesses. Transit App is a planning app that Metro currently uses. That's our app that we use to plan trips. Metropia is similar to Miles. They have a platform that does trip tracking and trip planning, as is Ride Amigos. They have a platform as well. And both Metropia and Ride Amigos have incentive delivery tied into their apps. So you can actually give people incentives. And then Uber is, we all know Uber, that's also one of our partners.
Okay, thanks. So three TDM, essentially Miles, Metropia, Ride Amigos are all kind of in the TDM space.
Yes, okay. Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And because we are really looking to dig down and find the data, we are working with the behavioral scientists. And so what we do is we start off with our sample population of participants. They're randomly assigned into two groups. One is the intervention group that receives the incentive and the messaging, and then the other is the control group, which is simply studied. We ask them information about how they commute, their habits, all those sort of things, but they don't actually receive the intervention. In order to make it fair for all of the people that are volunteering to participate, someone who is put in the control group at the beginning of the intervention will then, after about 4 weeks, be put into the treatment group. So they will still receive incentives. And we did that because we're working with some employers, and we didn't want some of their employees to receive an incentive and others not to. But we did need to have that control group data up front to be able to compare. The way we're getting our data is we start off with a research question. So for example, does receiving an app that offers personalized recommendations reduce drive alone behavior? And then from there, we create an incentive and pair it with a technology partner. Then we use passive tracking through the tech partner app. We track mode use, we track commute distance and time of travel. If they are using transit and using our tap cards to access transit, we can get their trip data through their transit, through their tap ID. We also have self-reported surveys. So we're asking about what is someone's commute preference? What is their happiness and well-being like when we're talking about their commute? And we can also gather some demographic factors. All of those things can have an impact on people's choice. We're also looking to get parking data where it's available. So if an employer or building developer has electronic parking data, we can use that to track how often people are coming in and out of the parking lot.
So are you able to match people across those apps, like across app and tap and the other programs?
Yes. So what we're doing is we're choosing for each intervention, we have one specific tech partner so that we can track that person the whole time. So we will have some where they will have a tap card and they'll be tracking, and then they can talk to each other and we can track the person with the tap card and also what they're doing in the app. So we can get all of that information. But if we're doing, for example, if we're doing a carpool incentive, then we're just going to go with one tech partner so that we have, the information stays clean, it's easy to track, and it's just in one bucket.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
In order to get our research participants, we have partnered with large employers in our region, with transportation management organizations, building owners, and other nonprofits. And so we work with them to actually get their commuters to participate in the incentive, and participation is voluntary. So any commuter who wants to participate simply fills out the consent form, and then they're ready to go. The way the pilot development process occurred was this all started with Metro's Office for Strategic Innovation had a unsolicited proposal forum entitled "So You Think You Can Solve Traffic," and there were 5 proposals that were given about using rewards to get people out of their cars, which then led to a review of the research for best practices of using rewards, and then that led to the idea to study what is the best return on investment when we're talking about incentives. We applied for the AIM grant with Duke University and our tech partners. And then once we got the grant, we met up with Duke to figure out our research methodology and what our incentives actually were going to be. So figuring out those research questions, and then how would we study those? Then we solicited our partners and executed agreements with them. So our partners are large employers, nonprofits, and TMOs. And the partnership between the partners and Duke and Metro in really developing what the incentives and interventions are going to be was a very interactive partnership. There were a couple of our partners that came to us and said, these are things we'd like to do, and we were able to do those. And there were a couple of partners that we came to and said, we have a proposal for you. We would like to study carpooling at your site. And we worked together to create the program. And then our last section there is Metro dispersing grant payments to Duke and Harvard, and then also to our tech partners, since all of the incentives will be delivered through the technology platform. The tech partners get the incentive payments, and then those payments are dispersed to the participants. We had some challenges. I think, like everybody, COVID-19 was a big challenge for us. It's difficult to study commuting when nobody's commuting. So we used that time really to think about what we wanted to study, to do a lot of preliminary work, preliminary research, figure out what incentives we wanted to use. So we were still working, but we really couldn't start any of our projects. The second one was contracts. Contracts are always difficult. We had some particular difficulties in that once we were ready to sign the contract with Duke, they told us they could not sign a federal contract or accept money or any of the data from our research. And that was because one of their, the head of their behavioral science department was called into question with some other studies that he did and some research that was called into question. And so at that time, Duke decided that they really didn't want to take money to conduct any more studies for a while until they did their own internal investigations. That put a big damper on our progress. And so what ended up happening is Duke is not going to be taking the data and analyzing it. Instead, they have helped us to create all of the incentives that we're doing, and they're letting us know what data we need to collect and how that data can be synthesized to get the best results. And so then Metro will be doing all of that in-house, and Duke is working with us in kind for basically no money, but more as a consultant. And then our next big issue was data sharing. The California Highway Code prohibits how much data that Metro can actually have and share. So we had to figure out ways to work around that. It was literally months of working with our attorneys to get all this ironed out, but now it is ironed out and we're ready to move forward. As I mentioned with COVID, we really couldn't study travel, but we were able to do a telework study with our own employees. So we did a survey maybe about 6 months or so into COVID, and we surveyed 1,800, or we had 1,800 non-contract employees at Metro who were offered a survey. We had 500 responses, so about 25% response. And really the biggest I guess discovery was that people are doing more productive, or feel they're doing more productive work telecommuting, and they have more time for personal wellness. When we asked employees to think about what they would want their work life to look like post-recovery, they said that 40% of the time they'd like to be in the office and 60% of the time teleworking after recovery. And now that we are in that hybrid situation, I can pretty much say it does seem like that's the sort of where people have landed, is 60% of the time teleworking, 40% of the time in the office. And we did discover that teleworking actually reduced 788 metric tons of our annual GHG emissions, in addition to what our commute program normally contributes. So our phase 2, which we're moving into now, is our reward incentive interventions. We have interventions for employees, residents, active transportation, and one that's geared towards downtowns. So those pilots that are approaching implementation, our first one is called Build a Better Commute. And our partners for that are 3 TMOs, LAX, which is our airport here in Los Angeles, our airport TMO, Verdugo, and Warner Center, which are other TMOs located in cities near Los Angeles, in Los Angeles County. We're using Ride Amigos, Miles, and Uber as our tech partners to collect data. And basically, these incentives are really encouraging employees to do anything but drive alone. The LAX one is really focusing a lot on carpooling. The Verdugo is any type of commute that's not drive alone. And Warner Center, which has a mix of business and residential, will also focus a little bit more on carpooling as well as transit. So where we are right now is the LAX intervention is going to launch in about early next month. So we've completed all the intervention plans for the 3 groups. Right now we're testing the Pave app from Ride Amigos, which is the app that LAX participants are going to use. We're looking to launch the app with up to 5,000 employees. There's 6,000 employees to draw from, so we're pretty confident we can get 5,000 employees to study. And then that will run for 3 months, and we'll have our data after that. The next pilot that's ready to go, which will go early next year, is the Take the One Car Challenge. So this is specifically for residents of the city of Santa Monica, which is a city here in Los Angeles County. And what we're using for our data collection is we're using the Qualtrics surveys and odometer readings. And this One Car Challenge, basically, we are targeting households in the city which are close to transit and have good bike and walk scores, and also have more than 1 car registered to their household. And what we're asking them to do is to use that other car, not use it at all, or use it considerably less. And in order to help them do that, we are providing them with transit passes, as well as bike share passes and personalized trip planning. They'll also receive a weekly stipend for every week that they don't use their car and participate in the study. And we will be doing surveys and also having odometer readings. So asking them to take a picture of their odometer in their second vehicle and send it to us. And some of the vehicles will also have GPS tracking systems on them, so we can track to see if they've been used. We're going to deploy this in 100 households for a period of 7 weeks. And that will start after the first of the year. Those that are in conceptual development, we have one in active transportation. It's called bike trains. Basically, what would happen is the idea is to help encourage people to bike to work by having groups of people bike together. So there's a leader and there's a group, and they form this bike train, and they all bike together on a designated path with designated pickup points for people, so that people who may not feel comfortable biking alone, may not have a lot of experience biking, feel better going together in a group. And our partners are UCLA and the CBC. The data collection is through Right Amigos paid app, and then we're also following up with surveys. Right now, we're looking into the development of the methodology and soliciting participants, which is a little more difficult than we originally thought it would be. Whoops, sorry. Another one that is in development, this one is, it's got a couple of parts. So one part is the visitor pass. So what we want to do is to target hotels, and we're also in talks with Airbnb to provide tap cards, which are transit fare payment, as well as our planning app in hotels. When people check in, when they get their keys, when they get an email confirming their confirmation, and then also in Airbnb, when they get the email confirming their confirmation, they can get a digital tap card, as well as they can connect digitally to our trip planning app, so that they can now use, they now have the tap card and they have the trip planner, so that they can use that instead of using a car to get around LA. And we're also looking at adding bike share to that as well. And possibly Uber. So those are our partners. And we are also using this same sort of model, creating these sort of welcome back kits, or these welcome kits for our downtown areas, to encourage our residents to use transit to explore their own community, rather than getting in their cars to go to a restaurant, to use transit to go to nearby areas. Our next steps, we've been working on our administrative work approval. So our MOUs, which are all being signed as we speak, our contracts with our tech firms, which are being signed, and just getting all those things done and out of the way. Our grant expires December 2023. And we're required to do an evaluation study prior to the end of the grant. We may need to ask for an extension due to COVID delays, which really pushed everything back for us. And the final piece is the inclusion in the countywide TDM plan. We are currently at Metro writing a countywide TDM plan, and the information and the lessons that we've learned from this grant will be part of that plan. Specifically, we're going to look at creating an incentive guide for employers, TMAs, and cities. And what we're going to do is explain the intervention that we did, what it cost to do, what was the return on investment. So in dollars, and also in sort of soft costs, so staff time, marketing, etc. And what was successful and what wasn't, and then how an employer or a TMA or a city could duplicate that intervention or that incentive. So we'll do that for each one that we do, and we'll make that available as a guide and part of our countywide TDM plan, so that what we've learned can actually help the employers and the cities in our jurisdiction really create data-driven TDM incentive plans. And that's it.